I watched A Christmas Story, and boy oh boy, it's a fun movie. So, this movie really surprised me in the best way possible, and it is one of those films where you go in expecting, a goofy 80s Christmas movie about a kid wanting a toy gun, and instead you get something that's actually kind of clever and way more nostalgic and more relatable than you would expect. I think it's actually really a fun movie. It manages to be fun for kids, I think, while also giving adults quite a lot to enjoy. And often when movies try to do that, they get this really weird tone where we don't know if it's for children or for adults. But this movie, it really rides that thin line and it does it really well. I mean, there are kids in main roles, sure, but the film is full of thoughtful observations about childhood, family dynamics, disappointment and dreaming, and everything that makes, Christmas such a weird and emotional roller coaster when you're a kid. I mean, that's what this movie is about. The whole story centers around Ralphie Parker, who is a 9-year old boy whose entire Christmas universe revolves around one thing, which is getting a Red Ryder BB gun. Not a toy airplane, not a football, not socks, not a PlayStation. They didn't have that in that time, but sure, nothing like that. He just wants a toy gun. And it's his obsession. He tries convincing his teacher, his parents, and even Mall Santa. And every single one of them hits him right back with the classic, "You'll shoot your eye out." That line is funny every time it comes back because you can feel how annoyed Ralphie gets, but, he keeps pushing anyway. What really makes this film work is how it taps into childhood nostalgia without being, fake or, overly sentimental. It actually feels like childhood. It really is messy and chaotic and dramatic and irrational and over the top, but that also makes it very magical, Think back when you were a kid, it was a magical, chaotic time. And there are scenes where Ralphie daydreams about being a cowboy with his BB gun, saving his family, and all of that is really ridiculous, but it's hilarious at the same time. You get it because kids have this wild imagination, and back when I was younger I probably did the same thing. There is no sugary hallmark Christmas messaging here. It's just really honest, it's really relatable, and that's what makes this movie works. And the humor actually really lands. There were some great moments that really had me laughing out loud. And the humor, it's not just goofy slapstick. Sure, there is a lot of that, but like getting your tongue stuck on a frozen pole. I mean, that's iconic. That's hilarious. We even get a pink bunny pajama from Aunt Clara, which might be one of the visually funniest jokes in a Christmas movie, I think. And, we get Ralphie's dad having a complete meltdown over the furnace, mumbling curses that you can't quite understand, but you know exactly what he's saying. It's hilarious, because, as an adult, you do the same thing when you want to curse, but you really can't. And the film also has that really dry, observational humor. I'm sorry about that. English is not my main language, but observational humor that that hits different as an adult. You can see what is going on, and the humor works really well. The narration is quite fantastic actually, and adult Ralphie basically explaining his younger thoughts with this witty and really sarcastic tone. Yeah, it really works well. That is, I think, where the movie really shines. That's where it's hidden. That's what is the where the magic of the movie happens. And I think that's why this movie also works really well for adults. As kids, you're probably watching this movie and thinking, I understand Ralphie. I want something really badly too. But as an adult, you're watching this movie and, you're laughing because you remember being that dramatic over something that is really small And now you're seeing the parents' perspective and how clueless but lovable they are. It's honestly a really good balance of childish dreams and adult recognition. That being said, this movie is obviously not flawless. I think it lands on a 7 out of 10, maybe even an 8 on a good day. It doesn't really have a very strong structured plot. That is the main problem of the movie, I think. It's more like a series of connected memories. That's basically what we're getting. We're getting a string of memories from Ralphie. It's driven more by those moments than it is driven by narrative. I don't think that's bad, but that does leave the whole movie unstructured, I think. You don't really feel a traditional beginning, middle, and end. And because of that, the pacing can drag a bit in the middle. There are sections where you feel like nothing meaningful is really happening, and the movie just wanders around in nostalgia. I mean, you're entertained for sure, which is the main part, which is the most important thing, but it's not really gripping you that hard. It also has to, you know, that very American 40s nostalgia vibe, and depending on your background, you may not connect with that portion as deeply, which is me because I'm not from that period. I'm not from America, so I don't really connect with it. But you know, even even without getting all the references, you can still relate to the universal childhood moments and the childhood dreams and all the drama that ensues. I mean, the sarcasm, the over the top stuff, the exaggeration and the way the adults act, I think that's universal. So not really a problem there. But the film doesn't really rely too much on USA humor to work, which is a good thing. That's why it works for everyone. The characters are honestly really lovable. Ralphie is great because you really feel like he's a kid, not a scriptured caricature. The adults are funny and they are clueless and they are, caring in the end. The teacher is memorable, the bullies are over the top, but they are real enough to trigger flashbacks to your own childhood. And even Santa, the Santa scene where Ralphie gets pushed down a slide that just speaks and it just peaks childhood embarrassment, just captured on screen. I mean, the acting feels real and not really forced. I mean, the kids are acting like kids and the adults are acting like adults, which is a great thing. And the thing that really works in this movie is that it is not trying very hard to teach you a lesson. There's not really something more important below the surface. It's just what it is, what it is. It's not preaching, it's not moralizing. It's just a fun movie. You know, I get that some people might want something bigger, but the movie is very simple. Christmas isn't always grand or dramatic, but sometimes it's just, small and silly and very personal, and that's what we get here. Ralphie gets his BB gun. He has an accident. Of course he does. And, Christmas just moves on. That's what it is. So overall, Christmas story is clever, it's nostalgic and funny. Genuinely, I think it's really charming. It's, the rare Christmas movie where both kids and adults can enjoy it equally, I think, but for totally different reasons. Kids will laugh because the situations make sense to them, and adults will laugh because they remember what it was being a kid. And if you're having kids, you will probably recognize moments there as well. It's something you can watch with your future children or just by yourself, like I did, and have a good time watching this movie. So yeah, overall, I was kind of impressed with it. I wasn't expecting too much from this movie. I hadn't seen it before, but overall, yeah, not perfect, but really enjoyable, very relatable, and I would say even memorable. I think I will watch it again next year. And yeah, it's definitely something where I would say I really enjoyed this movie. Sure, yeah. So 7 out of 10, 8 on a good day, I think. It's really good. So watch this movie, go watch it. But that's just my take on the movie. That's just my review. I hope it was helpful to you. Let me know what you think of the movie. And, I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.